Welcome to the Mary Mac Show, where we will be talking about your feelings, experiences, and pain following the death of a loved one. Hello, my friends, my warriors. This is Mary Mac of the Mary Mac Show. I am doing a series entitled Death by Fentanyl, and I've invited many parents and siblings to tell their stories about how their loved ones were murdered by fentanyl poisoning. And today I'm privileged to have Amber Hall. Amber lives in Wagner, Oklahoma, and her son Charlie was killed at the end of last year on December 31st. It's only been 5 months for her, not even 5 months. And she's a very strong woman. And I thank her for coming on the show today. And I would like to just give you a little background. Charlie was 23, only a few days shy of his 24th birthday when he died of fentanyl poisoning. He is survived by his mother, Amber, his father, Charles, his stepfather, Kermit, and he has several siblings, Alexander, Freedom, Bentley, RubyAnn, that's a cute name, Nicholas, and Rowdy. And so I thank her for being with me today, and I'm grateful, Amber, for you taking the time among all the things that are going on in your life. We still were able to get together today, so thank you.
Thank you.
So would you tell me about Charlie's growing up years?
So Charlie was born January 3rd of 2000, and me and his father divorced when he was small. But we had joint custody of Charlie, so he always was able to go to either parent.
That's great.
And yeah, so he spent a lot of time with his dad and me. Like, we both made such great memories, and we never made him choose. Like, he just had access to either. And he just loved being in the outdoors. He loved working on bikes. He learned to ride a bike by himself without training wheels when he was 3 years old. I look out there and he has the training wheels big up. And I'm like, here, let me take them off for you. And he's like, I need them. I said, you're not even using them. And he was like, oh, okay then. And then he learned how to do tricks. And that was his passion. He built bikes. Then as he got older, he started with motorcycles and cars. Like, he loved to swim, anything outdoors, anything. The further out he was in the woods, the happier he was. And he always wanted to know how everything worked. Like, he didn't care what it did, like what made it do it. That's how Charlie wanted to know. He was like,
very curious.
Makes it. Yeah. So, and one time he got in trouble with these little boys because because he had learned how to take apart remote control cars. And he was like, let me show you what's inside. Well, so he talks to these boys, they all break apart these remote control cars. The mom just bought it for the set of twins for their birthday. And then there's Charlie with a screwdriver, like teaching them how to take it apart and rewire it when they were little. And I was like, oh, sorry. But they had fun exploring. Like, and he was, that was one of the greatest things, was like a bunch of the kids was like, I remember when he taught me how to bunny hop on my bike. I still don't really know what that is. But and little things like that. He was always the big brother of the group, of all the kids. It didn't matter what group it was. And he always had to be the show off. One year for like first grade, they had some kind of parents thing. So I attend, and we're in the cafeteria, and his little friends are like, show your mom what you can do. And they're like chugging the chocolate milk. Like, and I'm like, really? He always had to be the one. uh he didn't like attention, but when he walked in a room, you were going to notice him. Like, he just was unforgettable. Like, he was everybody's little buddy. And so he would always like help people. Like, my grandmother, she lived in a senior citizens area, like it's apartments,
Uh-huh.
and he see him get dropped off in the cab or whatever, and he'd say, oh, I gotta go help Lou with her groceries, I gotta go help Fanny with her groceries. And he'd go over there, and next thing you know, I'd have to go track him down because he'd be over there helping one of them with something. And then there was like this couple that lived, this story always touches my heart because Charlie, his grandmother actually lived across the street from him. And they they were older, but they had raised their children in this home. Like, they had made all their memories in this home, and they required some care. Like, and they had care during the day, but not at night. Like, but they didn't need a lot at night, just someone to cook their meals. And their family was going to put them in a nursing home, and they were kind of sad. They were real sad. But Charlie was like, I'll come over, and he learned how to cook. And he was about 9 years old, and he would go over there and cook with them. Like, so they would
Wow.
eat their dinner. And because of him, he got to stay, those people got to stay in their home together for another 9 months until they required care at night that Charlie obviously couldn't give.
Sure.
And I'm always proud of him for that. And his grandma was a home care provider, and she had to have this surgery one time, and they were going to cut her loose because she couldn't do the laundry. Like, and so Charlie at that time shows up over there, and he'd show up the day that she needed help with moving things or something so she could keep her job. And I was like, this kid is always out helping people. He was big into sports, he loved wrestling, and he loved football. He was great at them. He was pretty good at them. And that's where he got hurt. He got hurt in football when he
Oh.
was about 13. And he ended up requiring surgery in his ankle, and they had to leave a screw in there
Mm-hmm.
because he had broke his growth plate in his foot. And so he ended up with a couple of surgeries from that, and they had him on pain medication. And after that, I think that's what started him experimenting and such. But even then, we didn't know there was anything going on because he was, I mean, still always out helping people, always still doing the same things. Like, so we didn't know anything until about 18. That's when 18 came along. Because Charlie just had a heart. He had such a good heart. And so he always tried to help the underdog
Yes.
at the school, the the kid that needed more help. And sometimes that would lead him to some that did not have good intentions. And when he was so giving, sometimes I feel it took a toll on him
Right.
in a way. Like, I think it took a toll on him being so needed.
Yes. And the compassion sense, after a while, it exhausts you.
Is
I
yes, so
think
he
there's something called compassion fatigue.
yes. And it's like, because Charlie, when he would help people, it would bring in a lot. He had empathy, he had sympathy for people. So when people shared their stories and he was there with them, he felt it. Like, he felt their hurt, he could see it. He didn't
Yes.
never just, he really genuinely cared, so it hurt him to see people hurt. And I think he kind of self-medicated himself because of it. But he was always stopping to help somebody. Like, I don't know how many times we'd be driving and he'd say, Mom, stop, we got to help this person, they've got a flat, like, and I am late for an appointment, and he would say, Mom, if it was you, would you want somebody to stop and help you? And I'd be like, yeah, yes. And through it, Charlie, he sat with a lot of people in their darkest days, and he led a lot of people on their sobriety journey and their journey with God. He led a lot because he I always say, like, Jesus walked with the thieves, he walked with the murderers, he walked with the undesirables, if you will, and he touched their hearts. And I said, my son did the same. He was always, and with his passing, a lot of people just, I was flooded with dates of, I call them his tribute dates, like of dates where your son sat with me in this truck. And after that, I checked myself into rehab. After your son in jail with me, I went and found God. After, and I was just like, he's been out here touching more people than I even knew. Like,
Yeah.
he had touched so many hearts that I didn't even know. It was, and that was from the time he was born. Like, when he was 2 weeks old, his grandfather passed. And his grandmother got a lot of comfort from, the new life, the baby, and
Yeah.
it created a special bond between them. And I tell everybody, because people come to me and they say, I shouldn't hurt so bad over Charlie. And I said, listen, my son, I was fortunate. I shared my son with the entire world. And I'm like, it's okay for people to be that hurt. I'm like, because that means you loved him. I'm like, I'm okay with you hurt. Not in a bad way, but I'm like, just let yourself, like, he was loved. Like, he was always helping people, or he was dark in the woods fishing and swimming and dirt biking. One time he got his truck stuck in a creek trying to go mudding, and then it rained while it was stuck, and so his truck got swept down the in the creek. And I'm like, get out of the truck, because they called me, and I'm like, get. And he's like, I can't leave my truck. And I'm like, a tow truck can't get you. You need a tractor. Like, you are gonna. And he ended up being safe, and he got it out. And he was like, I told you I'd get my truck out. And I was just like, it never ran right after that, but
Aw.
he was a determined. Once he set his mind to something, he was determined on everything. He was a great welder in school. Like, he at the park down in Stillwater where he went to school at, I don't know how it all happened, but in school they were doing some kind of welding competition thing in the class, and Charlie won, and he built a scoreboard that's still at the park down there.
Ah,
And they were going to pay for his welding. He got a welding scholarship out of it.
wow.
Yeah, because his welds, I forget what they held, but it was an impressive amount. Like, that kind of stuff. But it was, and that was impressive because he was in the 10th grade when that happened. And
Wow, that's so young.
yes, he loved it. Him and his dad would, because his dad had a shop. When he would go there, his dad and him would just go out there and pull out metal and just weld. Like, it didn't matter if you messed up. It didn't matter what you tried to do. Just play with the welder. I don't. They loved it. Like,
We wouldn't really know too much about it, but that's okay.
yeah, I know he loved it and he was good at it.
Oh, that's so good. Tell me
And
about tell me about the day he died.
so the day he passed, that day, I didn't feel right. I didn't know why, but the whole day I didn't feel right. And I felt it in my bones, like something was not right in my life. But it was a beautiful day. It was so beautiful outside. It was the end of the year of 2023. 2023 had been a rough year on our family. We had a lot of good times, but we had a lot of stuff happen. And so I was like, it's going to be a new year. I'm going to sweep up my living room, and then we're going to just watch some movies and relax. And I'm going to get out of this funk that I'm in. And I swept up, and I was going to take a break and sit down on the couch. And my phone goes off. And it was a cousin that I was not close to sent me a friend request on Facebook. And I didn't understand why my heart sank when I seen it. Immediately as I seen it, my mom calls me and she says, "Hey, your cousin just contacted me and said they found Charley unresponsive. Is that true?" And I said, "I haven't heard nothing about Charley." I said, "I'll call Jackie," which is his dad's mom, his grandma. And I said, "Hey, Jackie, is Charley okay?" And she said, "No." And I just hung up the phone. And I called my mom back and I said, "It's true." And I hung up on her. And then I called his grandmother back, and I could hear the like stretcher, the metal sounds of the stretcher.
Yes.
You know, they make a clanking
Yes.
kind of
The wheels.
yeah, I could hear it. And I could hear him say, "Excuse me, ma'am," when they were taking him out of her house. I didn't know that's what it was in that moment. And she said, "Amber, they've done everything they could. They're taking him to the hospital now." And I just hung up my phone again and I hit the ground and I was crying. And I was just like, "Lord, no, please. He's going to be 24. He's got to be 24. My baby's going to turn 24." And I felt I'm overreacting. Why am I here? Like, he's going to the hospital. He's, he's, my son lived right down the street from the hospital, a 1 minute drive, an 11-minute walk. Like, that's quick. He's going to be fine. And the first, when my mom first called me, it was 2:36 in the afternoon. And I called her back at Jackie at like 2:39 and at 2:42. And then I call her back 2:39 and 2:42. Then I call her back at 2:49 and I said, "Hey," when I picked myself up off the ground, I called her back and I said, "He's at the hospital, right? So he has to be able to be saved. He has to." Like, and she said, "No, no." And that's when the cop took the phone and he told me that he had to inform me that my son had passed. My son had passed at 2:46 while I was hitting the ground begging for his life. And I asked the officer, "How?" And he said, "We suspect a drug overdose." And I couldn't make sense of that in the moment because Charley had been sober all year. And my world shattered. And I knew in that moment, though, when that officer told me, it's like I could hear my son, "Don't let me die for nothing, Mom." And I was like, I got to find out what happened to him and I've got to make a change because something killed my son. And it turned out it only took 5 nanograms of fentanyl to kill 225 pounds of a 23-year-old healthy boy. Man, he was a grown man. And that day it come to find out his friend, supposedly friend, stopped by the house, and minutes afterwards his father had went in there to check on, like, go in there and see what Charley had a job to do. Charley was starting his own tree trimming service with his friend Cole, and they had a big job coming up. And Charlie had to finish out some little stump removal, and then they were going to be able to go start this big job. And he had been working on a chainsaw. And his dad went in there just within minutes of this friend leaving, and Charlie was found blue. His lips were blue and the tips of his fingers were blue. And he was on his bed in front of his chainsaw. And his dad kind of kicked his foot to wake him up, like thinking, like, what the heck? You just walked by me, like, and he's like, hey, Charlie. And Charlie didn't say nothing. And so he went over there and he rolled him over, and he knew because he was blue on his lips and his fingertips. And he started doing the CPR and calling 911. And they got there within minutes. And they tried the defibrillator. Is that what it's called?
Defibrillator.
And they gave him Narcan and everything. And they got him to the hospital because he still had a faint heartbeat. But he was still alive when he got to the hospital, but he died while they were still trying to set him up with his throat and stuff. So he was gone before I could have ever even gotten there that day. Sorry.
It's okay. It's totally okay.
And in my mind, I thought he was going to be saved. He was right at the hospital, And then it was such a small amount that it doesn't take much of this stuff to kill somebody.
Oh, just a few granules.
Yeah. I was like 5 grains of salt, more or less 5 grains of salt. Was how much fentanyl his friend, we believe, gave to him. And there is an open investigation still on Charlie's case. It's only been 136 days ago as of today, so they still have a long process, but they're working towards something. I don't know because it's open, they don't tell you a lot.
Yes. But you have to
So,
keep up with them. Don't let them let it be.
oh, they've learned my name. I call very
Good.
often because
Good.
he can't call. I have to be the one to, because my son ain't just a statistic. My son, we're going to make a difference.
Yes, you are.
And so it's like, we're going to find this person. This person needs to be held accountable for their part, like in what happened to Charlie.
You okay?
Yeah. it, it's
It's a
hard.
lot. It's a lot to recall.
It is. And then there's so much you find out because you think it's final when it happens, but there's so much that comes about after. And it's like
Yes,
ripping all over. And
it's true.
then I choose to talk about it to try to spread more awareness. And it's not always easy because it hurts. Like, because we wish we would have known these things. If we would have had Narcan on hand, maybe it would have made a difference. Because I tell people, it's like, even if you don't know somebody, you can save a life.
Yes.
You don't know whose life you're going to save because people are being poisoned with this stuff. They don't know it's there. They don't know that's what they're getting. They have no clue that it's there. We didn't anyway. We had no, I knew nothing of fentanyl 145 days ago. The past 136, I have learned and I've educated people in every way I can. Like, I tell them, like, your kid could be the one that saves somebody. They could save their friend.
Right. And it's interesting. I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, until we go to heaven, we'll never know all the people that were saved because what good we did by letting people know, letting people know that this is an issue, a major issue.
Yeah.
And we could be saving thousands of lives and we won't know till we're dead.
I'm like, it's a national problem. This isn't just one community, it's not
No?
one race. It is a national problem. Day after day, with the groups I'm in and stuff, I see children, I hear officers talking about responding to the high schools, like it is anywhere and everywhere. Like recently, I heard a story of they found a half of a kilo on a homeless person.
Oh my God.
If this was left in the streets, I mean, it is on the streets, but innocent people can come in contact with this. So people have to know, like, what the signs are of overdose, what to do. You have to give them Narcan. You got to call C911. Like, it's a lot. There's a lot of education out there.
And it also puts like police, law enforcement, and EMT people in jeopardy, you know?
Yes,
And
yes,
I mean, I give them a lot of credit for going into those situations where they find it exposed and what do you do with it, and how do you handle it all? And the other thing too is I read that 1 kilo of that powder, the fentanyl powder, can kill up to 500,000 people. That's
yes.
crazy.
There was just I read one just the other day where they had recovered 395 grams of straight fentanyl. That's enough to kill 197,000 people in one
Bust.
recovery. Yeah.
One
And
bust.
and I'm like, y'all, this is a real, it takes grains of salt. 5 nanograms is all it took. And my son was 225 pounds, 23 years old, worked industrial construction. Like,
Solid man.
yes, like he was beautiful, but it's just it's just crazy that 5 nanograms. You put that on that man's pinky, you wouldn't have even noticed it. And that was enough to kill someone so healthy and I see it day after day with other families, more families joining the groups and more families reaching awareness. And I'm like, these numbers can't continue to grow. This is huge. Like the amount of people it takes, it killed over 100,000 people, over 112,000 people last year. And my son passed away at the end of the year at 2:46 in the evening. And what's sad is there was probably another 50 overdoses after his every 11 minutes. So he was basically just in the middle of the day where there was still so many other families affected. He wasn't even the last for the year. On the last day in the afternoon, he wasn't even the last overdose. There were so many after him and before. Like it's the number one cause of death for children. I think from 15 to 25.
No, 18 to 45, no, 15 to 45 now, number one leading cause of death.
And it's like, I started this 4 months ago when I lost my son on just researching and learning. And when I started, it was basically 7 out of 10 illicit drugs have fentanyl. In 4 months, I've watched that number rise to 8 out of 10.
Yes, I don't think that enough people understand that it is not only laced in marijuana, right? It's laced in
Yeah,
weed, it's laced in cocaine, meth, heroin, craziness. So
fake
when
pills are
when you have like a heroin addict, for instance, and they think they're getting their regular heroin, you know, meanwhile it's laced with fentanyl and they die. And then you have pills that are manufactured down in Mexico from the product that comes from China. And
yes.
they create all the pills to look like what a real Xanax is, what a real Percocet looks like, what a real oxycodone,
And to the
Oxycontin.
took
Yes,
it and look it up on Google, it's going to tell you that's what it is, but it's not. It's fentanyl.
yes,
It's
it's counterfeit. It's completely counterfeit drug.
and
And
I've also learned if those people were to break that pill in half, the fentanyl will actually go into you. It's like you take it all at once. You don't really take less.
right,
The way it affects you is worse. And I'm like, this is just crazy. This is a true, what would the
epidemic.
word epidemic? Yeah. I'm like, this is a national problem that is getting ignored over and over and over. I'm
Yes,
like, COVID, y'all didn't want to take your children out because you feared them getting a cough. Like now there's real things in life. Like we can't watch our children 24/7. When they're in school, no, you don't think they're going to get exposed to anything that could contain fentanyl, but it does happen. There
mhm.
are children that take gummy bears, the marijuana gummy bears to school. They will be laced, and the kids don't even know that they're giving their friends laced edibles. Like, so your child could literally think they're getting a regular gummy bear, not
Yep,
even know it's got marijuana in it. Better yet, fentanyl.
yeah.
Like, your child can honestly believe they're getting a gummy bear.
Yes, and that's the
Some,
problem. These people are, these young people are ordering like on Snapchat. They order
yeah,
a Percocet. They order one Percocet, and when it comes, they say, "Well, I'll only take a half of it. I don't need all of it," because they think it's legitimate. And
right.
so they take it, and half of it is fentanyl, maybe, and the other half is not. So if they share it with a friend, one friend dies, the other one does not. It's very weird.
And I
And
know examples of that exact scenario has happened.
oh yes, to
Like,
many families, many of
yes.
which I've spoken to.
And
And I
after this,
just go ahead.
like, I was going to say, one day my husband, he works construction also. He goes to work and he has a headache. Someone goes to offer him an ibuprofen and they're like, oh, wait a minute. I got to find it in here because they had like Adderall they're prescribed in it too. And my husband was like, no, no, thank you. Like, never mind. But that simple of if
Wow.
theory, my husband would have taken the ibuprofen, you don't know where that guy, what other pills are in this bottle, obvious. And I never thought of that. I never thought that by getting a Tylenol from somebody and you see it come out of a Tylenol bottle, would you ever think they could have something else in there?
They
That,
do if it came from Mexico.
yes.
I
And I'm like,
mean, having that counterfeit look, it might look like, the capsule of a Tylenol or whatever, but it's not.
yes. And I was like, see, that's how easy innocent people could have been exposed.
Yes.
What if in that was a counterfeit pill? It's got fentanyl all over it. It's been shaken up in this bottle. Now the ibuprofen you're going to take could be coated with this fentanyl.
Yes.
It's not out of the realm of possibilities. It can happen that simple, that quick to innocent lives.
You can't allow anyone to give you a pill that either you don't know what's in it or you don't know who the person is that gave it to you. You know,
Right.
you might
And
be like at a party or something, and your friend comes over and says, "Oh, take this, it'll enhance the mood." You can't do that. I mean, years ago, you know, when we were younger, you know, you could try things, okay? Like you could try a joint, you know, usually it was that. So you tried a joint in high school or college and you were fine. You were a little, maybe it made you fun, have fun. Maybe in my case, I remember trying it in college and I fell asleep. It made me sleep. Okay. So it made me very like, you know, relaxed. And I thought to myself, I don't need this anymore. You know, I never did anything harder than that. I saw what it did to a lot of my friends. They became druggies. That's what we used to call them back then. And
yes,
and it just curtailed their education. You know, they didn't do well in their studies. Some of them had to drop out. It was really sad, you know. So, but now I always
now
say the
you can
days,
die.
excuse me,
That you can literally die.
now.
Just yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's not like it was years ago. You could
no,
experiment with different drugs and get off them. You could take it for once or twice and go, I didn't like that. And then you move on. But this is
yes,
not those days. These days of experimental drug use are completely over. Over. You don't have the luxury of just trying something because you want to find out what you feel like. You can't because you don't know if that'll be the last time you'll ever try anything.
yes. And that's what me and my husband were talking about was like, I said, you've got to think as some of them, our friends have children in college and stuff. And I'm like, how many times when we were young, you ever went to a party and someone had thrown something into the punch bowl?
Yes.
And I said,
Yes.
if a person does that now, I said they could technically expose every person at the party to fentanyl.
Yes.
And one could be enough to take out an entire party
Yes.
of innocent lives, even thinking it was just punch.
Yeah.
Because and back in the day, that was real. People done that. Like children done that. And it's like this is a true problem. This is I had no idea the severity of it. And I'm like, I wished I would have learned. I wished I would have had someone teach me the things I know now.
Right.
Like I
And that's why we're talking to one another because we want people, those individuals who are listening to this for the first time, please share this video, share this audio, because more families need to know what they're up against in this day and age of fentanyl poisoning. This is not a joke. This is affecting families all over the country. And as we said, it's now the number one killer of children and adults age 18 to 45. How did that happen? That happened because we have a government who doesn't care about us. There's something going on in the background that is not right. And most of it, of the fentanyl, comes from China with the approval of the head of the Chinese Communist Party. And we learned that on April 16th in the United States House of Representatives. And if you'd like to learn more about that, go back a few episodes and learn how the Chinese have absolutely no one dying of fentanyl. But we had 76,000 of them in 2022. And that's because the president of China allowed manufacturers to develop this drug. the synthetic opioid and illegally push it through Mexico and up into our country. But he will not allow that manufacturer to let anyone in Chinese society be harmed by it. So, what does that tell you? That says volumes to me.
I agree.
Hmm. So, would you talk a little bit about the grieving process, what you've been going through over the last several months, and also your family, how they're all dealing with everything?
Well, it's everybody grieves different, and we can
Yes.
see it within our house. Alex, he tries not to talk about it. He tries to just continue, but then he'll open up when he needs to. But for the most part, he tries to just move on, which isn't the term, but
Yes.
and then with me, it just turned into this drive of, if this can happen to our family, we have to alert other people. We have to give this knowledge to anybody and everybody that will listen. And we have to share it and let it be known, like, this is what happened to my son. This is fentanyl. He
Poisoned
was
him,
like,
murdered
that is,
him.
yes. And it's like, I will be so satisfied if when we get this person, it'll take time, but the truth always comes out. I'm a big believer in that.
Oh,
And when it,
I totally agree with that. You
and
know,
it's
you
like,
can't, and if it doesn't come out right away, karma will get them back, right?
yes. And so we've really tried to alert people about certain things, like, hey, did you know that people can order this directly from China and it doesn't have to go through inspections if a package is valued at less than, I believe it's $800.
Yes, $800.
And then it doesn't get checked. It
Mhm.
doesn't go through inspections at all. So it can go straight to a person's door. That's scary.
Yes,
Like, that's terrifying. There's no reason that that needs to be. I have to go pick up my diabetic medicine. If like, you can't do this. And so we try to alert people on all these things, because a lot of times people think, well, these people were addicts. These people played a deadly game. No, there are some people that don't even get a chance to even play this game. There are people, there are first responders, the first responders who went and put everything into saving my son was in a room where I don't know if that's where he had used it, but they could have easily come in contact with it. When they walked in, they don't know how much my son could have had on him. They don't know where it's at in the room. They don't know nothing. When they rip
right.
his shirt open on a person, what if it flew out? They could inhale this. This is a real problem. So I get it out there, like, everybody needs to be aware. Like, you have to be aware. And I try to tell everybody, like, that's what I do a lot. I try to get out and I work with a group, and we just make Facebook posts. We have posters, we go around, like, to schools and stuff. It's like we try so hard. And then having two smaller girls, um, it's it's hard. Like, his sister, Ruby, she will be 6 this month. And so it's hard because you can't be as open about everything with a 6-year-old.
Yes.
So we explained to her brother was poisoned by somebody, and so when we go to things, she, like, they have shirts they wear in honor of their brother and stuff. And she's already like, when I grow up, I want to help save people from being poisoned.
Aw.
And I said, well, I hope by then we don't have to, but that's a good idea. Like,
Yep, yep.
and I said, the more, we can, the better. And it's like to see littles grieve such heartache. Like we have a memorial spot out in our yard where we all go and spend time with Charley. And it's like, even his smallest sister, who just turned 2 since his passing, um, she just goes, Bub, like, and they don't understand where he went. They don't understand what all of the details are. Like,
Sure.
but Ruby, she's had a hard time in school. I can tell where it has emotionally hurt her.
Affected her. Yes.
And
Have you
like,
spoken to her? You spoken to her teacher so they know what's going on with her?
yes, we had to speak with the teachers and stuff. And, they're like, oh, well, she has to basically get over it without saying it. They put it in a much proper
Mm-hmm.
manner. And I said, okay, ma'am. I said, I understand that. And I said, and how did you deal with your brother dying when you were 5 years old? And she was like, well, and I said, or do you still have your siblings? I was like, because if you know about sibling grief, because I haven't lost a sibling. I said, so if you have advice on sibling grief, please inform me. Like, and they couldn't really say much.
Of course.
Like, I was like, this is a real effect on her. This isn't just she wants to be bad. This is, children don't know how to express things as
Yes.
well as and if I'm a grown up and I don't know how to express all the ways I'm feeling with losing my son, how do I expect her to do it at 5? And I kind of got into it with the school because they called me in, just like, I said, do you understand that while I was making his service arrangements, Ruby was still expected to be at school. Ruby was still expected to be normal. And I said, this is her real life. You all have to start accommodating this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is big. This isn't, no, it's not something a 5-year-old should have to deal with. But that's her real life. Her brother is gone. She has seen this. Like, she has seen the awful. And she just looked at me one day and she said, Mom, because where he's from, the town I'm originally from, I always call it the wild because back then I was wild. I was young and I don't ever want to go back to this town. So we just refer to it as that. And she said, Mom, when I grow up, I'll never go to the wild and I will never get poisoned. And I was like, I hope so, baby. Like, and I love her for and it's creating what I'm doing is also helping them learn that there's just nothing safe out there. Like, even as small as she is, we don't use certain terms. There's certain things in it we don't talk about in front of her. Like, I don't ever tell her your brother was a friend of him lured him in with methamphetamines. You
Right.
know, I don't tell her those things. Like, she's 5. It's not,
No, she's not ready for any of that.
no, no. So she kind of acts out because she doesn't understand certain things, but there's certain details I can't explain to her yet. She's
Yes.
not nowhere ready for them. I know she wants answers, but in the end, she has to know, like, someone bad done this to your brother. Someone bad poisoned your brother.
Right.
And she knows everything that we go and do. Like, I'll tell her, like, I have to go talk with the officers right now. So stay right here and watch your show for 10 minutes so mom can get on the phone. And everybody watches them so I can deal with that stuff when I deal with it. But it's like she knows that there's still unanswered questions. There's still a process to this that she's not actively involved in, but she's involved.
Oh, yes,
Like,
she is because children will stand, like if the detective or the DA comes to your house and you're sitting at the kitchen table, and she's standing around the bend and listening to every single thing. She knows that something's not right. And even though she's not emotionally mature enough to discuss it with you or to be given that information, it still affects her. She knows it's not right. She knows something's not right.
Yes. And it's like, inside you're like, there's more to this than what's being. I feel it with the court, like with the officers. I'm like, they know more than what they're telling me.
Right.
But they can't.
Yes. And that's
like
okay, because as long as you know they can't, you can deal with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And you have to have faith that whatever they're cooking up in the background is all going to come together, to get that person or persons and see them tried with justice.
Yes. That is, yes. So everyone's we've really turned it into a lot of educating our grief. Not every time I get sad, there are times I just break down, and dealing with the world is a lot. But we just take as much grief as we can, and then we put it out there in the world into knowledge. Like, because if I had this knowledge, I could have done something different. I could have talked to him. I could have, maybe, I don't know if it would have changed anything, but I could have explained to him that, hey, this isn't what it was. This isn't the same. It's different.
Yeah.
And that's what our goal is. Because Charley actually left my house in August and went back down there to stay with his dad. And when he went down there, the day he left, something inside of me was like, that's the last time you will see your son.
Oh my goodness.
My heart dropped, and I watched him drive off right here. And he stopped right here in front of the house for the stop sign. I live in front of a stop sign. And I thought, oh my gosh, I should have ran out there and hugged him one more time. And then he came back a couple of days later and got his stuff. And he said, Mom, I'm going to go down here. And I said, well, son, the last time you left, I felt like I needed to hug you again. And he hugged me all the way to his Jeep. And he was just hugging me. And he said, Mom, just always remember you got your one more hug and that I got to go. That was the last. And I mean, he just gave me this biggest hug and everything. And he was just like, I love you, Mom. But remember, I got to go. And you got your one more hug. And I was like, I want other moms to have that. I want other moms to get the one more hug. Like, we deserve that. Like, as moms, deserve the hugs. Like, and it's like, so if we can educate people and we can make sure, like, we save somebody, we can touch thousands of lives by doing what we're doing.
Yes, you can. So in closing, what I would like you to tell me is what you spoke about before, about the Charley Bears.
Oh, yes. So
because I thought that was a lovely story.
At his service, we because explaining death to small children is hard. Like, one of his brothers Alex turned 21 and Freedom is 14. So those two understood and can communicate how they feel a lot better. Well, Bentley was 6, Ruby's 5, Nicholas is 5, and Rowdy was 1 when this happened. And she's turned 2 since. And so we told the children at Charley's celebration of his life that we were celebrating Charley because he got a new job promotion, and that Charley's going to be an angel now, but the only way to become an angel is to die. And so he had to unfortunately die, and we called him Charley Bear. Like, that was the nickname from him for when he was real little. And we gave all of the littles a Charley Bear, and it was a little stuffed bear. And we told them how this bear, like, no matter who touches it, no matter where you drop it or anything, you can wash it, and that this Charley Bear will give you heaven hugs. And
Oh,
that's explained the death to his siblings, was that now Charlie's an angel. And they were so excited that we had to have cupcakes at his celebration of life. And I found people was just like, cupcakes. And they're like, well, if Charlie did good, he needs cupcakes. And we were like, well, you're right. It's like, so they had cupcakes and stuffed bears.
oh,
And we turned it into a true celebration, like a retirement party, I guess, or a promotion party.
oh, that's so nice.
It being beautiful for the littles to get the, and when they're the boys' mom, Bentley and Nicholas's mom, sent me a picture of them curled up with their bears. Like, it just melted my heart. I was just like,
That's so nice.
because he loved his siblings. Like, those were his favorite people. And no matter how little or how young they were, he always made sure that they knew, like, you are valued and you are loved and you matter. Like, just because you're tiny doesn't mean your life is. Like, that was his thoughts. He loved children. He loved children.
And always made them feel special.
Yes. Like, one little boy one time left a truck in his car, and the mom told me about it. She was like, your son held on to my little boy's truck for 5 months, carried it around with him so he could give it back to him when he's seen him, because it was his favorite truck. And like, when he passed, before Charlie had passed, him and his stepfather had went to Lids, the hat shop, and Charlie had gotten this new St. Louis Cardinals hat. He was a big St. Louis Cardinals fan. And and so I, when I found, went to get his last stuff, I was like, where's his hat? Where is the St. Louis hat? I want the St. Louis hat back. And his dad was like, well, I don't have it. And I said, well, go get it from whoever has his hat, because I want it back. And he was like, well, Amber, we were at the store one day and a little boy looked at Charlie and was like, I like your hat. So Charlie gave him the hat. And I said, well, the boy can keep it. Charlie, because I was still a kid. I thought it was one of his friends had taken off with his hat. And I was like, no, I want the hat back. And then I was like, Charlie gave it to a kid because he liked the hat. That was Charlie. Charlie was that kind of person. He would have been such a great dad. He always wanted to have children, but he didn't get to have any of his own. So he just was like,
So he borrowed others.
whenever he passed, some people that hadn't seen him in a long time, they're like, well, we thought he had like 3 children. And I was like, those aren't his children. I was like, Charlie would just take in children. He just would like see a kid and he would, you know, just develop a bond, like just hang out with them, play. He lived basically next to the high school and stuff in the school, and he knew a lot of the people in his town, and these little kids would just play with Charlie. Everyone would be like, did you come to hang out with us? Because the kids just loved him. I mean, he would take Ruby and him would go on brother sister dates, is what they called them. And they would go hit up the park and then McDonald's. And then she always knew brother was going to go and buy her either ice cream or they're going to go shopping. Like,
Oh,
and Alex would always go to stuff like Dave and Buster's and stuff. And so it was always like and then his other brothers, it was like they went outside and they ran around and just wrestled and played in the park or whatever. Like, he always made time for each of them. And that was pretty hard, being 23 and your parents have both divorced and remarried and you got 2 sets of little siblings in 2 different towns. Like, but he did it. He always did it.
oh, that's so nice. Well, Amber, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting us spread awareness and share Charlie's story.
Absolutely. I was so nice to hear. So nice to hear all about him and his life. And I'm hoping that, oops.
Nail, sorry.
I'm hoping that you and your family do well. And please keep me updated on the case and how that all comes together.
I will. We're gonna stay on top of it because
Okay. Well, thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. Bye.